So the rule is that it's illegal for me to have any opinion, which is interpretation, or any emotion, intensity, without having all the information. Now, imagine if our culture applied this one rule, that it's illegal for me to have an opinion or have any emotion until I have all the information.
Oh my gosh, that would be game changing. Hi, friends. Welcome to Productive Joy. Today is a pretty special experience. You are getting a second-time guest. Greg has been with us before, and he's back with us today, and yet he has a new book and all kinds of amazing new things to share. But before we jump into Dr. Stewart, I want you to make sure you're following this podcast. My goodness, does it make a big difference? It's the most valuable thing that you can do for me. So share it with all your friends and hit subscribe, follow, or wherever you're watching this. Do the thing at the bottom that tells you that you are now a part of this. Today I have with me Dr. Greg Stewart. He has been a guest before, so he is a second timer on Productive Joy. He's a counselor, a coach, a professor, an author of 3 books, all of them with I3 in the title, which is kind of fun. And the most important thing you need to know about him is that he is a first-time grandparent to a sweet baby boy who is carrying on the Stewart name. And he is a second-time guest on Productive Joy. Hey, welcome to Productive Joy, my friend.
And of course, great to be back on with you, Christie, and it's my pleasure, of course.
So you haven't exactly been sitting around eating bonbons since the last time you were here. Why don't you tell us what you've been up to?
Well, so this is the 3rd book in the series, and the last book in the series is, I Cubed. That comes from I was a math major in my undergrad, so just wanted to add that. But it's information, interpretation, intensity. It's a process I use to help, in thinking and dealing with our emotions. But the 3rd in the series is just basically a download. So what I found is the way I wrote the 3 books was a concentrated time of, I took a week and I sat and I would just type for probably 8 to 12 hours a day. And then knocked out probably 90% of it. So this last one, and people are probably going to criticize me appropriately, is my wife and I went on a cruise in April, and we get a cruise every year through a package, but I sat on the cruise and I knocked out about 80% of this leadership book while on the cruise. So it just concentrated time of just doing the downloads, but it's a blast.
Okay, well, hold on, because there are a couple things there. First of all, the reason I said I3 and not I cubed, I do know what the little looks like, is because I ran a grant. Gosh, it's been 12 years ago now, called the I3 grant. And it was written the same way. And the I3 right now, I can't remember what it stood for. But when I see it, that's where my head goes. So that was a federal grant that I was in charge of over a decade ago. So that's where my head went. So that's that part. Yeah, if I were your wife, I probably wouldn't have been unbelievably impressed with your choice. However, I get it. I wrote almost all of my book on flights, multiple flights, because I am super social, except on a plane. I don't want to talk to people on a plane. And so I would not get internet, and I would open my computer and I would just be in this bubble, and it was a perfect place to do that. So I can see your point on a cruise. Did you at least look at the water?
Oh yeah, we had a blast. I mean, actually, it was probably through like Wednesday or Thursday, and we did and the excursions and stuff. But my wife agreed to it ahead of time. She said, obviously, we get a free cruise every year, so not a big deal. We're gonna go on another one, and she totally gets it, and then was totally okay with it. But we did plenty of fun stuff, obviously, on the cruise. It wasn't like I didn't stay in the cabin 8 to 12 hours. We just put different places. She was able to read books and stuff, so it worked out. She was in agreement. She was in agreement.
I'm going to be okay with it then, because otherwise, if that had just happened, I don't know if I'd have been thrilled with you.
Yeah, and appropriately, right. That was my second book was on cue for couples. So hopefully after writing that book, I would learn a thing or two from it.
Yes. Well, and I remember your first interview so vividly. And I mentioned before we started recording that you're one that I quote often. And so maybe people haven't gone to listen to the first one, and we want them to go back and do so. But why don't you catch us up? So I cubed is a fabulous theory. One that basically you said that people can't push your buttons unless you let them, right? And you've got to really utilize what you have inside you to project out. But why don't you kind of walk us through your process and then take us through each one? Because each one was written for a different audience, right?
For sure. All right. So I cubed information, interpretation, intensity. So I include that chapter in each one. And it's kind of a combination of emotional management plus critical thinking, where I came up with this iCube thing like 25 years ago when I was a pastor, and it's, I picture it like the Panama Canal. So the first lock has to fill up before the second lock opens. So information. So the rule is that it's illegal, like using that word. It's illegal for me to have any opinion or which is interpretation or any emotion intensity without having all the information. Now imagine if our culture applied this one rule that it's illegal for me to have an opinion or have any emotion until I have all the information.
Oh my
Right?
gosh, that would be game changing.
Huge, right?
I think about politics just in general. It doesn't matter what side you're on.
Yeah,
Please
exactly.
get your facts straight, right?
Get your facts straight because obviously with all that. So that's the information. So once you have the information, then even with the information, the interpretation, I just like to start with, negative, neutral, positive, which is my opinion on the information, my beliefs, ideas, or response in my cognitive response to the information. And obviously because we're using the I cubed, it's easy for us to come up with a negative, like we're upset about something, right? So the key rule there is there, and this is the critical thinking, is there any other way of looking at it? And to the most extreme, which I apply in my leadership book, is that you want to maximize your critical thought on this is picture people who would vehemently disagree with you and where are they right? Right? So in the interpretation, it's not just like one specific sentence that is a correct interpretation of the information. There could be several sentences that are all true, that are even like paradoxical in nature. They seem to oppose, but they just coexist, and they're all true statements of a possible way to interpret the information. So from all those sentences comes a natural flow of intensity of emotion, meaning the combination of all those statements of interpretation just naturally produces a certain amount of intensity, which I say intensity, emotion is energy. So that energy is produced from degree of impact of the information, like how big of a deal is it, which is based upon impact. It's not my initial blush emotional response. It is what is the degree of impact. And secondly, how much emotional energy do I need, or how much energy, because emotion is energy, do I need to respond to the situation? And just like an example of something small, like if you call me a name, I mean, how impactful is that? Well, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's like a 0.1. And how much emotional energy do I need to respond to? Meaning probably the same, meaning, Christy, could you please not call me that? Whew, over, right? But what happens is to the opposite end, that it's not always that low is best, because, speaking of my grandson, if my grandson waddled out into the street, how much emotional energy is needed there based upon degree of impact and emotional energy that's needed. So the goal is to have the right amount, because some people don't just have too high of emotional energy. Some people have too low, like our teenagers and their homework. Their emotional energy to drive to get it done is too low, right? So it's about having the right amount, but obviously based upon the book and stuff. So from this emotional energy, the first book had to do with just individual counseling. It's unlock the inner strength behind your negative emotions. And that was equipping people on taking the power back from the environment and being able to respond to the situation, right? And then I would have like statements like, nothing bothers me unless it should. So if we immediately begin with whatever something, you don't like happens or doesn't happen, immediately begin with, nothing bothers me. I don't care. But unless it should. If it should bother me, I have to have the right amount of emotional energy, but at least start out at 0 if you can and just say, nothing bothers me unless it should. Then I carried over into the second book, which is IQ for couples, which is facing our negative emotions to unlock intimacy in marriage. Because the negative emotions, when it comes to, let's say we all have, everything we do is trying to achieve an emotional goal. And for women in marriage, the main emotional goal is security and safety. And the main emotional goal for men is significance or respect, or what have you. So that's our drive in relationships. But what happens when that goal is blocked? Our negative emotion comes. So I say that when my emotion is inflated, right? So a lot of times that's what happens. I have too much emotional energy. I say that all negative emotion is exposing something in me first. My inflation of negative emotion is not my wife's issue. It's Greg's issue, right? So we face those negative emotions. We in first 2 books, We face those negative emotions in order to find out what is lying underneath, in order to kind of face that and then deal with it and realize that, again, that a right amount of negative emotions fine, but too much is right.
Yeah.
So my
Wait a minute,
third book,
hold on, because my brain is spinning. I am so excited. And
yeah,
you're
of course.
taking us through the process in the first two books. And there are a couple things I'd love to camp out on. Negative emotion is showing something in me, not in anyone else, right? Like this is me. Every human that is listening right now has had an inflated emotional reaction to something that shouldn't have been a big deal. I told you last time, my husband and I have been marriage mentors for the last 8
Mm,
years.
right.
And
Mhm.
in that process, we talk about socks on the floor, right? So every couple has had a discussion about leaving the socks on the floor that has gotten a little out of hand. But it isn't about the socks, right? And that's really what you're saying is there is a trigger way over here that has nothing to do with the socks, but is manifesting because of the socks. So
Very much.
when people pick up your books, are there specific step by steps? Are there things like,
Yes.
how do I get to the point where I recognize this has nothing to do with the socks?
Right. And that's exactly right. So I actually used on a side note, I use wives being upset with their husbands playing video games, right? And the husband gets defensive about playing video games. I'm like, dude, it's not about the video games.
Uh-uh.
So the key principle is that we often attack what we see as the obstacle to our emotional goal.
Hmm.
The socks are representative. They're symbolic. Video games are representative. They're symbolic to the emotional goal of the wife is I want more time with you.
Right.
And so, right, and we're going to actually work on the revised editions where I talk about first affections. If we feel that our spouse has a greater affection, because initially, like I call it like when we are dating and engaged and getting married, that's what's Instagrammable and Facebookable, right?
Yeah.
Right? But what happens, we go from that we feel like we are our partner's first affection, but after we get married, that everything we did to win our spouse to the altar, we stopped doing like all the romantic stuff
Yep.
because we go into logically go into business partner mode and let's build our lives. But then it starts like, then we have to work at becoming first priorities, like when the kids are preschoolers, to where now we're starting to feel hurt and now there's first offenses. So it
Mm.
goes from first affections to first priorities to first offenses. And then that's where couples come in for, couples counseling. So the goal is to get back to those first affections. And so when we feel like something else is taking our spouses more affectionate, has more affection towards, it could be their job, it could be the kids, it could
Yeah.
be something else. That's when, all those alarms take off. So we have to work hard at keeping our partner to be like, you are my first affection and feel like it. So all that being said, that another piece is I say that in both books, I want to quantify the unquantifiable, which emotions and relationship is
Yeah.
unquantifiable. So very, very much through specific techniques, systems, what have you, and it's based upon expectations. This is how you address, like in the first book, the inflation of emotions comes from three main things. We believe lies about the situation. It could be about ourselves. I'll
Mhm.
never get a job. So lies are number one. Number two is when we take things personally, that means that the negative thing is impacting our value and worth. So I have a process helping us solidify our own identity, value, and worth, and taking our value and worth away from the environment. And then number three is, big T and little t trauma.
Mhm.
Like, right? So like very specific techniques on how to respond to the individual, very specific techniques and systems for helping couples, because it's always about expectations. Like if we create like solidified expectations around, I call it scheduling the minimum, like, hey, do these five things like a daily connect, deeper connect, date night, business time, and quarterly getaways. If you did these five things, would your relationship be healthy and thrive? So every couple for 30 years has said yes. So it's quantifiable. So if I see my spouse being intentional in ensuring that we do these five things, I'm now becoming their first priority again because we both want to be each other's first affection again, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the goal.
Oh, okay. And I
Yeah.
really love what you've done to make it clear, right? I appreciate something that is, I can hold on to it, I can follow, I understand. And I not only understand, I think I could repeat it. And you did that first for an individual, then you did that for couples. recognizing that those same practices spill over into the one relationship that you have where you're always with this person, right? Like this is the
Yeah.
person you've chosen, and now you have to figure out how to live together, which, isn't as easy as society might have you believe. But now you've taken that beautiful thing that works and you've translated it into the leadership space. So my first question to you about that is, why is that the progression you chose? And then how is this going to impact all of our listeners who are in leadership positions, which I would argue is everyone?
Right. Exactly. All right. So it just kind of happened naturally where when I was back in the day in the 90s when, there was a bunch of us that had 160 credit hours but no degree.
Mm.
And it was when they started creating the adult and continuing education programs for adults like us where, one night of school per week for a year, you get your bachelor's degree. And that was my program because I wanted to get my start seminary to get into ministry. So I took my degree that they offered was organizational leadership, right? So I liked it. It was good, but I wanted to get to seminary. But then my first semester in seminary, I took philosophy of counseling and fell in love with that. So I mapped out to do a master's. Then I got my first PhD in counseling, but I did my dissertation because I fell in love with leadership. I started teaching as a professor in all the organizational leadership courses that I took, in my undergrad. And then I fell in love with leadership and I came across the book Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. So I did my dissertation for my PhD on the relationship of emotional intelligence with job satisfaction and organizational commitment. So that launched into my coaching and consulting career and then became that. So the natural progression was just my IQ book because started doing telehealth counseling and then couples because half my caseload is couples. But then I wanted to do the final book because of my career it's been for 25 years is on leadership as well. So the third book is, here I keep your leaders, right? So now the subtitle and I explained this in the introduction, has a completely different slant on negative emotions. So while the first two, it's like unlock the inner strength behind your negative emotions and facing your negative emotions. This book is unleash the rage of your negative emotions against the obstacles of becoming more.
Ooh.
Right? Isn't that cool? Right?
Yeah. Well,
So
I don't know who helped you with that, but good job.
yeah. So the becoming more is the first chapter, right? That's my becoming more counseling, coaching, and consulting. So becoming more, it's a participle where it's an ongoing process of becoming more than what we are, right? So one of the quotes is everyone becomes what they want to, only some people think about becoming more. And the want simply is if we just listen to our mental models, I used to use the example of the snooze button, like just hitting that snooze button. When you hit the snooze button, you want to.
Yeah.
Right. And impulse, we just follow our impulse. The impulse is going to be based upon what is going to make us feel the best in the moment.
Right.
Whether it be that handful of M&Ms or the yelling at our kids, whatever it is, it's our mental model impulse response, right? That's what we all want to do. So everyone technically becomes what they want to, only some people stop and think and want to become more than what they are. So an objective paradigm for becoming more effective, more efficient, more mature, more spiritual, and what have you. So taking that, I came up with this in chapter 2, the becoming more quotient. And it's 4 areas of just my own leadership theory because there's a million books on leadership. So, kind of why do we need another one? Well, it's my personal theory. And a lot of books on leadership will take one little slice or element of leadership. And there are books that do an entire theory. But my challenge to people is if you can find me a quote, an article, a book on leadership that does not fall into one of these 4 areas, then, hey, I'll buy you lunch, which nobody has won that argument yet. So it's 4 areas. It's IQ, right? So IQ, we're born with it. We can't do anything about that. But I say we maximize our IQ through formal and informal education, right?
Sure.
You don't have to do the formal education because there's PhDs walking around all over the place informally,
100%.
right? They're just experts in their field. Secondly is through critical thinking skills. And that's the piece where critical thinking is not a new thing. It's a skill we can develop. Like Socratic, I'm doing a lot of reading on Socratic reasoning and questioning right now, right? Which is critical thinking. I cubed is critical thinking. Like, is there any other way of thinking about it? So then there is EQ, which is emotional intelligence, which you're familiar with, Daniel Goleman's model of self and others awareness and management, but then personality. So just on those alone, I've always said that personality ran through the machine of emotional intelligence will predict your degree of intrapersonal inside of yourself and interpersonal between people effectiveness. I don't know how you can do leadership training or development without discussing EQ and personality, right? But my fourth element is spiritual development and destiny. So spiritual development is simply moral and ethical development, right? So Hitler technically was a great leader. It's just he lacked that fourth element,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's right. So that's true. So that spiritual development is just moral and ethical. But secondly, destiny, and this is a key component, what I call the Ironman core. That if you remember in the first movie, he had to get that energy
Yes.
source placed in his chest to keep away this high-tech shrapnel that was going after his heart. Well, the Ironman core is this inexhaustible source of energy that creates our destiny. That is our mission statement.
Mm.
So that true leadership, one of my quotes is leaders who do not have this Ironman core are simply machines managing other machines.
Wow.
Right. So we know that it's like between management and leadership. Management is needed, right? That's formal power, like coercive reward power and positional power and knowledge and expertise, very needed. But formal power without the informal, which is the relational, charismatic power, referent power of relationship, is simply like you're a jerk if you only have formal. But informal without formal means you're just a nice guy.
Yeah.
Right. Or a nice gal. So in this process of the Ironman core is not managing other machines means that when I do what I do, and it doesn't necessarily have to be your job, right? But I can't tell you how many people literally I've had reach out to me for counseling because they're in their 30s and they feel like, whatever they are, director, VP, whatever, they've done it career-wise, or they feel successful at the career, but they start approaching that midlife crisis age and they say, is this it?
Mm-hmm.
And what's missing is not necessarily that they're career, because I actually, at the same time, it was weird. I had both a couple guys from Houston. One was a radiologist. The other was an anesthesiologist. They didn't know each other. They reached out to me for the exact same reasons. They were out making 300K plus a year, but they felt empty. And what they were lacking was that mission. So
Yeah.
it's obviously not going to quit their jobs to pursue their mission statement, but they added something to their life.
Yeah.
Like one guy had to do with just calling when it comes to like, I talk about like, what's the one thing in the world that drives you insane about the human experience, and kind of begin there and drill down into that. And it's based upon every single mission statement I've ever helped somebody develop came from our personal experiences.
100%.
100%, right? All right. So that's the Ironman core of this inexhaustible source of energy, because without that, the shrapnel, I say, our life's annoyances, the stoplights, the traffics, the politics, whatever it is, that just drill and kill our hearts.
Yeah.
But if we have the Ironman core, it repels those, keeps them at bay. Because I don't frankly care. Yeah, that stuff's annoying, but I'm here to, me personally, change people's lives. My personal mission statement is to blow away the bell curve, which I can't stand mediocrity.
Oh, me
Right.
either. Actually,
Right.
when I first decided to start my business and I've had to figure out what the problem I solve in one word was, the problem that I picked was mediocrity. Like, I don't think anybody wants to be mediocre. I think we all want to be extraordinary, but we settle for mediocrity because we just don't know any better, or we're not that extra piece. I have to ask you because I feel like you literally have your PhD in productive joy, right? Like, so if emotional intelligence,
Right.
job satisfaction, there it is. So can you please tell us in your words, how would you define productive joy? And then more importantly, how do you help create it?
Right. So, those two words, and I love the name of it. So let's just go with joy. So first we do joy, meaning joy is separate from happiness.
Mhm.
Happiness, the key word in happiness is not happy, it's hap, which is based on what's happening. So my happiness is going to ebb and flow according to what's happening. But my joy is deeper. It's related to peace. So joy, we think of the word joy as being more synonymous with happiness. I think joy is much more synonymous with peace.
Mm.
And that peace comes from, it's almost like peace plus hope equals joy. And because I have joy out of the peace I have and just that nothing's going to rock my world, plus I have hope that something's going to be better later than it is now, and I have control over it, that gives me joy. Now, productive joy is the maximization, efficiency, and effectiveness in my processes to achieve joy. And that was just off the top of my head because I was not expecting that question, but I'm glad you asked it because it's an awesome, awesome question of what it is. And I don't know how you define it. But that's how my first blush, how I would define it.
Well, what's fun is I've had over 200 episodes now, and I've never gotten exactly the same definition twice. And there have been some themes, right? And flow is a theme for sure. Like when you lose track of time, things are just flowing. Almost everyone has agreed with you that joy is a choice and it does not equal happiness, right? And appreciate that. And I have gotten peace maybe twice. And what they talked about with peace was the idea that I am not going against what I believe. I am going with what I believe. And that is lending itself for me to be successful. So the harder question is, how do you help people create it?
So one is like in this spiritual development and destiny, it's, let's say, for instance, even through all three books, that I say that, everything we do is trying to achieve an emotional goal. There's the micro emotional goal. I'm thirsty, want to take something to drink. Our macro emotional goals are based upon our quality of life as related to, obviously, the standard of living. We want to improve that, and that's completely okay. But also living our values and fulfilling destiny, calling, and purpose. All right. So in our pursuit of those things that are values, so happiness would be based upon, it's almost like a micro emotional goal. If I just do what makes me happy, I'm not living my values, right? Because I'm just doing what the dopamine says I should do. So once you add that pursuit added to values and then mission, calling, and purpose, people who are the most selfish are the most miserable, right? So the people who, give themselves over to, I am here to impact other people's lives, right? So as a pastor, so there's a verse that says the Son of Man, Jesus did not come to be served, but to serve, right? Servant leadership, huge, right?
Yeah.
So servant leadership is based in that I am here. The greatest joy I have is helping other people to defeat mediocrity, helping other people to blow away the bell curves. So that has to relate to the joy, has to relate to values as well. And then peace, I say contentment versus peace, I differentiate. Contentment is, I'm content with what I do have as far as standard of living. Peace has more to do with I have peace in the midst of the storm, right? When bad things are happening. So how can I do that? I'm living my values, because values is what I feel here. Happiness is what I feel here.
Yeah. Well, and to go back to your analogy with the Ironman core, right? It's death by 1,000 cuts unless you are protecting yourself by staying focused on what's right and true and important to you as a human. Okay, first of all, I don't know if anybody's told you this today, but you're a super smart dude. And you have...
I asked my wife to tell me that every morning when I wake up, and she won't.
She's like, no, we're not going there today.
No, not gonna do that, right?
So much. But you have also done something pretty miraculous by taking all of this knowledge and turning it into action. And that is much more difficult than just spouting off information. And you've done a beautiful job with book 1, book 2, and now book 3. So how would somebody find all of you and all of your books?
So really simple, drgregstewart.com. I actually purchased that domain. It's just the DRGREGSTEWART, just drgregstewart.com. And I've got the books listed there and then all my services and stuff, just trying to keep it simple. Or you can actually go to becomingmore.com too. I don't know which one's easy to remember. becomingmore.com or drgregstewart.com.
Okay. And can you get your books on Amazon too? Like
Yeah. So that's what I did. If we go to the website, actually, all I had to do is click on the book and go straight to Amazon. All the books are available on Amazon. Yep.
Well, just in case they forget, but they remember iCubed, then either way, we want them to get.
Yeah. And that's funny is when you mentioned, I'm sorry to interrupt, that i3. So if you just look for i3, it'll come up with all the Intel processors.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, i3 book or i3 for couples or IQ leaders, right? In order to get to the books. Otherwise, you're going to have all these Intel processors.
Isn't it fun trying to grab domain names? Like that's the thing, right? Like somebody else has productive joy just straight out, but if you put an underscore in there, you're okay.
There you go. Yep.
I am so glad that we were able to connect a second time. And I am so glad that you chose to spend your cruise writing a book that leaders can use. Because, I started this podcast for the purpose of giving people the resources necessary to create more productive joy, right? Because I think that joy is a choice and every one of us needs to be finding it with intentionality. Otherwise, we're going to just look back and go, well, what did I accomplish? Right.
Right.
And so the people listening are people who want to seek that out, and you have given them a roadmap for finding it and keeping it, which I think is the most important part of this isn't fleeting. This is
Yeah.
a shift in mindset and a shift in way of doing things to really change the world. So kudos to you. This is impressive.
Thank you. One more little shameless plug is like my next book, where I'll work on this fall, is How to Feel Forgiveness.
Ooh.
Every single person we know we should forgive, but the obstacle is I don't feel like I've forgiven them. Or what do a lot of us say is like, I don't feel like I've forgiven myself. So whether it be you're the perpetrator or somebody else, that how do you actually feel, which is going to be related to peace and joy,
Yeah.
forgiveness. So,
Okay. And are you going to write that one on a cruise, or do you plan?
no, I'm actually thinking about, I don't know when, I'm thinking about maybe Thanksgiving week.
Oh, okay.
Right.
There you go. I love that you crank them out in a week. Most people, most actual non-superhumans take a little while to write a book, but you're like, oh, watch me go.
Well, yeah, it's in there. Just gotta dump it.
Oh, I love that. I
So
love
thank
that.
you, Christy, for having me on. This was honestly a pleasure.
Absolutely. Well, I have a couple rapid fire questions before you're allowed
Yes,
to.
hit me.
Are you
Yep,
ready?
yep.
Okay. So the first question, what's your definition of fun?
Definition of fun is happiness. There are times in which you get your dopamine fix, however you want to get your dopamine fix. I call that recovery time. Matter of fact, one of my values is I hate wasting time, as you might imagine, but recovery time is not wasting time. Recovery time is have fun, replenish, enjoy your life. That's fun.
I appreciate that so much because I don't hold still well. And I am recognizing as time goes on, and I talk to brilliant people like you, that it isn't wrong for me to sit down and read a book for pleasure, or to, just to take a minute to fill my cup, because you can't pour from an empty cup, can you? Okay. How do you know that you are showing up as your authentic self?
When I have peace, because you probably know this better than anybody, it's when you're not, all the bells and whistles start sounding off. Something is not right here, Greg or Christy, because you're not right.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the barometer, right?
Yeah. Yeah. When it just feels yuck.
Yeah.
I think that's the best description ever. How do you channel your best self on your worst days?
I have to withdraw, right? So because I have to do my examination. One thing that, one in my first book, excuse me, the first, I'm not gonna, sorry.
You okay?
The first line is, you can't impart what you don't possess,
Mm.
right? So I have to, when I'm on my worst day, I have to take my own medicine, and I have to say, okay, Greg, what's being exposed in you? Right. So
Yeah.
I've gotten better and better at kind of stopping and withdrawing and doing that examination first.
Mm.
Right. When I'm not having a good day, it's again, something is being exposed in me.
Yeah. Well, and good for you for recognizing it and taking your own medicine. That's important. Okay. Last question. Tough question.
Yep.
Of all the brilliant things that you've said today and all of the nuggets of wisdom you've dropped, people can really only hold on to one. So what is the main thing that you want people to know as a result of listening to this podcast?
Don't stop until you discover your Ironman core. Don't stop until you discover your mission statement. I cannot emphasize that enough. That is the basis of everything. Why you are here on earth.
Yeah.
Find it.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Well, thank you for choosing to be not one, but 2 times a guest on Productive Joy. I know my listeners gained something from this. I certainly did. And we're just so blessed to have you. So thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. And again, my pleasure. Thank you.
And friends, my goodness, if you don't walk away with like 10 different things that you can use right away, you weren't listening. So go back and listen a second time. Like if you can see my notes, if you're looking, I got a little slinky is what I did, but I got a little out of control with all of the things that I wrote down. But I want you, I'm just looking to see what I would say. I think I underlined Ironman core because that was the last thing you said, but I think that's what's resonating with me because I don't want to die of 1,000 cuts. I want to have protection against the things that bring me down. And that's ultimately your message for today. So, friends, I need you to take that message and do something with it because any new thing that you've learned is only as good as how much you use it. So, use it to figure out a way to turn fun into action.